She was a mother of 3 young children.
She could talk to a person off the street, very caring.
The night she walked out of that bar was the last time Melissa Cavender was ever seen alive.
They had located her car in the parking lot of a local bar.
We don't know if it's stranger, family, friend, or foe.
He walked in the bar, he got a lot of attention.
He's dressed as what?
Appearances can be deceiving.
There is such a thing as being at the wrong place at the wrong time. It's probably the most bizarre case I've ever prosecuted.
When you lose a child, your whole life changes. Everything is different. You cook this big meal and you sit at a huge table and there'd be a missing chair,
Melissa was the mother of 3 young children at the time. She was married. She was a local girl. Her whole family lived in the Santa Fe, Lamarck, Texas area of Galveston County. They're a large family here for most of their lives.
She was just like a kid herself at times, outgoing. She was just bubbly, and just ready to go have a good time too,
All right, last one. That's my cue. All right.
She left to go pick her husband up at work later that evening.
It's good to see you. You too. Bye. Bye. Bye, Sam.
Take care now.
The night she walked out of that bar was the last time Melissa Cavender was ever seen alive.
The next morning when I got a call from my granddaughter, and she said, Nanny, she said, is Mother there? And I said, well, no, baby, she never come over last night. And she said, well, she didn't come home last night. She never picked up Dad. I go looking and different friends, I'm calling everybody. I told my husband, I said, let's go look. He said, no. My husband would not leave the house for 2 days. He said, if my baby can get to a phone, she will call me to wish me happy birthday, and I'm gonna stay by the phone. I went down 646 and I found her car. And I thought, oh, thank God. But where was she?
Once they found the car, the family observed things with her vehicle that just definitely appeared out of place, so they notified the sheriff's office, and deputies went out there, and then ultimately I got notified about it.
Galveston County doesn't get a lot of missing person cases, but our approach was anytime we received a call and someone was concerned about a family member, whether it was their wife, husband, child, we took it serious enough to go and investigate until we located that individual or if something else bad happened.
Galveston County is somewhat of an unusual mix of suburban and very rural. A lot of quiet country roads, and within mere moments you're in the middle of tourist areas, of beaches.
Melissa was the type of person that she was very outgoing, very into everything. High school, she was cheerleader. She was honor society. She was just a very vibrant, happy person, you know. And she met her husband in high school. Wonderful mother. She cherished her children.
Joshua, honey, come on, it's time to go.
Why do you think he lives behind the mini mart, Mom?
Well, some people just get a bad break in life.
Her children had walked down to the corner store, and they come back and they said, Mama, there's this poor man on the corner there, and he looks bad. He has no food, no money. So my daughter packed a big lunch, and they took it down there to him.
Hi there. Hey, my kids were telling me about you, and we thought we'd fix you up a nice lunch. I hope that's okay.
Oh, yes, ma'am. Thank you. Appreciate it.
You take care now.
Thanks so much. Thank you, kids.
People think, oh, no, she couldn't have been that good, but she was. She was a very loving person. As a mother, I couldn't have been no prouder.
Something told me that it was okay. There was probably something a little bit more to this than just a routine, someone that just wanted to disappear for a couple of nights and that's going to reappear. Something just really didn't feel right about it.
We don't know what happened to Melissa Cavender. We don't know if it's stranger, family, friend or foe. We don't know anything. Before I could even start on her vehicle, I have to have a waiver. To get that waiver, I had to have Melissa's husband sign it. We made contact with the husband, asked him to come to the bar, to Little Red's Pub, so he could sign the waiver.
I don't understand. She's dead. Come again? Something must have happened there. She's dead. Why would you say that? She never goes anywhere without her smokes.
The husband, whole focus was that pack of cigarettes and the lighter, and he was insistent with me that you don't understand. She's dead. Something happened to her. Well, unfortunately, when he keeps talking like that to me, my suspicion at that point is high because you're here sitting here telling me your wife's dead.
You know, it might be a good idea if I read you your Miranda rights for your protection and mine.
So I read him his Miranda warning just in case he makes a comment that later on I may have to use.
You have the right to remain silent, Mr. Cavender. Anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law. You have a right to an attorney. If you cannot afford an attorney, one will be appointed to you.
I spoke with a few other folks there that were either patrons or employees at the bar.
And you said that she showed up alone and she left alone.
Yes, sir, I believe so.
Did you see her speaking with anyone when she was here?
She spoke to everyone. She was friendly.
Anybody stick out? Somebody you don't know?
No, I think I saw her talking to some guy who looked like a rodeo clown.
A rodeo clown?
Yes, sir.
When we first heard that, we were like, he's dressed as what? They're like, he was dressed as a rodeo clown, like a rodeo clown? And they were like, well, yes, a rodeo clown. Makeup and all.
Yeah, the makeup and everything. He tried to talk to Melissa at one point, but she obviously wasn't interested. And then she left, and he left shortly after that.
You know, in this business, you never get really totally surprised by anything, but it was bizarre.
He gave me this, if this helps.
He had given them a business card. For what reason, I don't know. Card had his name on it, phone number.
Thank you.
So that began our focus there, is that to try to locate that individual to see if he may have seen anything that evening while he was getting in his vehicle and she was getting in hers.
He was merely possibly a resource witness to her leaving with somebody else or whatever could have occurred when he walked out behind her that night before at the bar.
We were able to track down Timothy John Smith, probably no more than about 3/4 of a mile as the crow flies from where this bar was.
When we got there, he greeted us. He had his girlfriend with him. And I mean, he was cordial. We just explained to him that we're working a missing persons case.
Mr. Smith, mind if we have a word with you alone?
We felt that he would be more inclined to talk openly to us. We asked his girlfriend to leave.
Go wait in the house. So what's this about?
Well, we're investigating a missing person, a Melissa Cavender. Do you happen to know her? Mr. Smith? Do you happen to know her?
Nope. Name don't ring a bell.
Mind telling us where you were last night?
Sure. I work the rodeo in Fort Bend County. I'm a rodeo clown.
July 10th of 1994, Timothy John Smith was working as a rodeo clown.
All right, folks, let's hear it for our next bullfighter making his way into the arena. Give a big round of applause to Timothy John Smith.
Afterwards, I hit a few bars.
Was Little Red's one of those bars?
Yeah, sure.
It's time to play the game. It's time for victory.
He walked in the bar, he still had his rodeo clown clothes on, the makeup and everything. Of course, he got a lot of attention when he walked in. People started asking him about being a rodeo clown.
Shot the tail, please.
Hey, man, a clown. Look at this.
2 of them.
2 shots.
Hey, partner, circus in town or what?
Yeah, really. You gonna make us some animal balloons? You know those little balloons you shape in animals? I like a pink one, pink pig. You make a pink pig?
Tell me a joke.
Oh, come on. We're all ears. We're listening.
Whenever you're ready.
2-way right here.
Yeah, we're right here. Come on back. Right here.
I like those pretty boots.
Went out to his truck and got photos of himself as a rodeo clown and showed everybody the photos.
You tell me, is that anything to laugh about?
Dang, those bulls are huge. You got guts, pal.
You're like a real rodeo clown.
Well, we got witnesses saying that you were talking to Mrs. Cavender at Little Red's.
Here. You ever need to hire a professional for events or what have you? Give me a call. Howdy.
Hello.
Brunette, early 30s, playing darts.
Yeah, that sounds like a lady I spoke to. Tried to pick her up, actually.
He said he talked to her, he thought she was attractive, and he said, basically that he was going to try to, hook up with her.
Lady that good at darts ought to let me buy her a drink.
Thanks, but no thanks.
Oh, come on, would you like some company?
I've already got some company.
But then he said he found out she was married.
And?
Oh, she wasn't interested. She went back to her darts, and I went back to my drink.
Do you recall seeing her leave?
Yeah, she left at some point.
And how'd you spend the rest of your evening?
Oh, came home, slept with my girlfriend. She's with me all night, you can ask her.
While Sergeant Hansen was interviewing the individual identified as Timothy Smith, me being a forensic individual and in my role as a forensics guy, I began walking around his vehicle, which spurred his curiosity.
You want to search my pickup or something?
We need your written consent. Would you give that to us?
Yeah, fine with me. Go right ahead.
Mr. Smith, you stand over here with me, thank you.
He ended up reading the waiver. We read it to him. He signed it, which would allow us to kind of take a little more advanced look at his truck, since we knew he was the last person to see Melissa alive.
Sergeant Hanson and Sergeant Pruitt looked a little bit more into the truck, while Tim and I walked a short distance away and just kind of had some general conversation.
Ain't gonna find nothing.
We started in the cab area. John was starting on the driver's side, and then I was just on the passenger side of the vehicle. And then we ultimately moved to the bed where there was some toolboxes and a spare tire and odds and ends junk.
Hey. Look at that. Does that look like human hair to you?
It could be horse's hair, I don't know.
There was a tire tool there that appeared obviously to have what we believe to be hair and blood on it.
The hair was actually stuck to the tire tool with, at that point, with my experience, a substance that I felt like was blood.
I'm gonna need a warrant.
I think you're right.
That's when we kind of stepped into a little bit of a different mode of, okay, we're probably talking to a suspect that knows something about where Melissa Cavender was and how she may have disappeared.
At that point in time, we decided to secure the vehicle and not go any further until we could later develop a more for a search warrant.
Based on the information we had that Timothy Smith was the last person that we know of that she had seen that night, the suspicion was high that he had something to do with her disappearance. Sergeant Hanson and I made a decision that it was time to do a formal interview with Mr. Smith to really find out where he was that night.
We asked his girlfriend if she would go with us because originally he was telling us that, you know, he came home that night and she was there and all that, so we wanted to interview her separately. The closest building that we could go to was the City of Santa Fe's police department, wasn't far from there. And we went over there to then conducted an interview with him.
Go.
So it's common practice for you to spend an entire day at the rodeo and then head to a bar right afterwards?
Yeah, I just like to go out in my get-up. Different.
Feel like you need to go home and change, clean up a little bit?
Well,
he went back to the fact that he was going to try to pick her up, you know, and then when he found out she was married, he said he left, and then he said he went to his living quarters there at his parents' garage, and got there, and his girlfriend was there, and probably something I think they've talked about. They may have had sex, and then he went to sleep, and then she got up at early hour to go to work and left, and that's how he, you know, put her there to alibi him.
Now, tell me exactly what time he got home.
I don't know, sir. Maybe 11.
And you were with him the whole night? He didn't go anywhere else?
No, sir. I was with him all night.
All right.
Actually, Sergeant, there's something I need to tell you.
And you were with him the whole night? He didn't go anywhere else?
No, sir. I was with him all night.
All right.
Actually, Sergeant, there's something I need to tell you.
There were some evident discrepancies between Tim's statement and his girlfriend's statement that gave us some indications that he was being less than truthful primarily discrepancies in time and discrepancies in his story of where he had been the previous evening.
She originally had a similar statement, but ultimately, I think when she realized that the whole dynamics of this investigation was changing quickly, that she later admitted that that was a lie and that she was not there.
All right, Tim.
We later took Mr. Smith and did a secondary interview with him concerning what we had found and what was going on. And then he then gave us a lot more dynamics as to what actually occurred.
Yeah, I might have asked her to lie for me a little bit.
Why did you do that?
Because it looks bad out there.
As far as the girlfriend is concerned, he admitted that that was a lie. So we really started pressuring him about what happened to Melissa Cavender.
I mean, we got witnesses that saw you follow Mrs. Cavender outside the bar. You find a tire iron with hair and blood. Tim, did you kill Mrs. Cavender?
Did he kill her? I mean, we just asked him at that point, did he kill her? And that kind of upset him.
Well, obviously, he got upset. That's a harsh word, killed. So trying to readjust to where we didn't get him to stop talking, I said, Tommy, maybe he hurt her.
Maybe he didn't kill her. Maybe he just hurt her.
Sergeant Hanson picked up on it.
Did you hurt her, Tim?
Yeah, I don't remember what happened. I was real drunk last night.
You didn't take Melissa Cavender home with you?
No.
Look, Tim, Melissa is a wife and a mother. She's got family members that are concerned about her. If she's out there hurt somewhere, we need to get her medical attention. So why don't you do the right thing?
Like I told you, I don't know what happened last night, but I know this is gonna sound crazy, but I'm seeing these pictures in my head of a place where she might be.
He started breaking down and letting Sergeant Hanson know that he had these visions, that he was seeing visions in his mind. So Sergeant Hanson started pressuring him. What are you seeing?
It's like a gate with a cattle guard. It's got like a ranch. There's a fence and some trees, and
All right, this is good. This is good, you got pictures.
I basically told him, okay, I said, well, let's, like a Polaroid picture, let's go develop this. Let's go develop these pictures.
Let's go for a ride in the van.
All right. Go ahead and stand up.
We decided we'd take Sergeant Hanson's assigned unit, which at that time was a panel van.
Any of this looking familiar?
no, not yet.
I'll keep looking.
He was in the front passenger seat of the van, and I was driving, and then John was sitting in a chair in the back.
At no time did we tell him that he was a suspect. At no time did we have him in handcuffs. We even provided him with a flashlight to help us look. The area out there is heavily wooded. The roads are overgrown.
It's an extremely rural area. It's marshland. It's adjacent to the intercoastal waterway, and the roads are extremely narrow.
He's like, I don't see it here. So at that point, we decide we need to back up. Well, unfortunately, there's nowhere to back up, but to back up. And we're talking a long distance. And this is where the whole thing took a turn for the worst, if you will, with Timothy Smith and I in the van. I had the opportunity to notice that he kept looking towards Sergeant Hanson's right side. Well, Sergeant Hanson, obviously being a police officer, was carrying a weapon. So I noticed him kept drifting over looking at that weapon. Then all of a sudden,
I think I can take you.
What did you say?
I think I can take you.
I think I can take you. I said, what did you say? His whole intent was to take us out there, hit Hanson in the head with that flashlight, take his weapon, shoot him, and then shoot me.
Oh, really?
And at that point, I let him know.
But that's not gonna happen.
What's going on?
He's saying he can take me, and the whole time you were backing up, he's been eyeballing your piece.
I did move my sidearm at that point in time. I took it out of the holster because I carried it on my right side, and I stuck it down in between the front of my seat, and so that he couldn't reach over and get to it, but I could get to it if I needed to. Things settled down a little bit, and then he all of a sudden changed his mind and started looking out the window again with his flashlight. So it was bizarre. Bizarre.
He described an area that Sergeant Hanson knew to be Kiddo Tackard Ranch Road. So once we got back on 2004 and Sergeant Hanson made that turn and we went down to Kiddo Tackard Ranch Road, that's where he saw that picture he was painting. He pointed out a cattle gate across the road that was rather a long one, and he said, that's it. So at that point, we stopped.
When I met them, I noticed they were searching this field. I went over and talked to Tim, and I asked him about, well, tell me about this vision you have. Kind of described something kind of like a gate or cattle guard. I told him, I said, Tim, those things are all over the place out here. I said, I've been around here all my life. I know what's out there. I said, well, why don't we take a ride and go take a look around and see if something else looks familiar to you? He agreed. As we went away from where everyone else was focusing, I remember that Tim mentioned to me that he kind of felt a little bit more at ease. I don't know what possessed me to ask him this, but I asked him, I said, do you mind if I take your pulse? Sure, go right ahead. So I did. He seemed to be fairly calm and making me think, okay, maybe we're getting a little further away from where we should be. So we drove back to Kiddo Tackard Ranch Road where Sergeant Hanson, Pruitt, and the others were. When I got back, I asked him, I said, do you mind if I take your pulse again? No, go right ahead. It was clearly elevated. It just really gave me that sixth sense that we were in the right place. I talked to Sergeant Hanson, Sergeant Pruitt. I said, has anybody bothered to look over here on the south side of the road? And it was a pretty heavily overgrown area, lots of brush, high weeds. No, we haven't looked over there yet. So I took a walk a short distance away and started walking through this brush and weeds. That's why I found Melissa's body. It leaves an indelible mark on you that you carry with you forever. From the spot where I found Melissa's body, I remember looking at Smith, and he was sitting on a bucket, if I remember correctly. And I could see his face was in his hands, and just kind of rocking back and forth. That gave me a good indication that he knew the gig was up.
Hardest thing I ever did was to tell her dad that his baby was gone. I thought, this is not happening. No, no, no. She's not gone.
The whole dynamics of the investigation obviously changed when now we know for a fact we don't have a missing person, we have a murder. And of course we had to notify the medical examiner and then of course processing and photographing the entire area and documenting and recovery of the remains to the medical examiner's office.
After Melissa Sue Cavander's body was found, Timothy John Smith was placed under arrest and charged with murder. This case did get some local media attention. The Galveston Daily News did print an article about it.
It got a little more publicity than most cases like that because of the rodeo clown aspect, for whatever that was worth. People need to know the true impact on their actions and how these things affect community, not just the person that's deceased, but the you know, again, she had 3 small children.
Michael was 7 when it happened. And one particular night, he told me, he said, Nanny, he says, I want to die. And I said, Michael, he said, I want to die and go to heaven and be with my mom. And I think, Timothy, what did you do? You know?
Timothy Smith went through a psychiatric evaluation before the trial. The main thing that sticks out in my mind are just a few lines in the report I think perfectly sums up just about everything. And that is that Timothy Smith suffers from antisocial personality disorder coupled with high levels of anger, hostility, and impulsiveness. And he also has a desire to control other people.
So what can you recall about the events of July 10th?
Some of it's kind of fuzzy, but I bought a quart of tequila that morning around 10 a.m. And I got to the rodeo grounds about 12:30 or 1.
Were you under the influence of any other stimulants?
I take these energy pills. It's got ephedrine in them. It makes me a little more alert. And then I probably had 4 or 5 beers at the arena.
You had anger problems as a child?
Yeah, I had temper, I guess. I used to chase my brothers around the house with a knife when I get mad.
You said you don't recall anything about the night of July 10th. How were you able to take the officers where the body was found?
Oh, I've taken women out there before.
Really? For what purpose?
What do you think? To have sex with them.
Why this particular place?
My apartment's in the garage of my parents' house, and they don't let me bring women home for sex, so I take them out there because it's close.
I see. So where do you meet these women?
Depends. Bars, rodeo. Sometimes I take them out there in my clown getup.
In your costume and makeup?
Well, sure.
And your lady friends don't mind that?
Not a bit. One of them even said it turned her on. Come on, wouldn't you like some company?
I already got some company.
After the conversation with Melissa, Melissa got up and left the bar.
Bye, Sam.
Take care now.
And Timothy John Smith followed her out of the bar.
We do know that Tim Smith followed her within mere moments after her departure.
What happened after Timothy Smith followed Melissa out of the bar, we don't know for certain exactly what happened.
We knew she had to have made it to her car because Her cigarettes and lighter were in the vehicle.
Based on looking at all the evidence, it's my opinion that after Melissa Cavender walked out of the bar, Timothy Smith overpowered her, put her in his truck. He left the bar. At some point, he beat Melissa about the face.
How she got into his truck originally, how she wound up out there, how she wound up totally nude, those are answers to questions that we will probably never know. He indicated that he had choked her, and then she was wheezing, and I guess, for lack of a better term, wanted to put her out of her misery.
She was strangled to the point where her larynx was fractured.
So he took the tire tool and beat her head in.
She was struck several times, according to the autopsy report. There's not any direct evidence, but we all suspected he sexually assaulted Melissa Cavender at some point too, and then finally dumped her body off of a rural road called Kiddo Tackard Ranch Road. Everybody was asking, what was the motive?
His motive may have been a focus on his ex-wife. When she walked in the room, I think both of our jaws hit the floor.
The big question throughout the case, what everybody was asking, what was Timothy John Smith's motive? Nobody knows that for sure.
We think that his motive may have been a focus on his ex-wife. There was a very striking resemblance between his ex-wife and Melissa. When she walked in the room, I think both of our jaws hit the floor.
Apparently, Timothy Smith was divorced, and he went through a very, very horrible divorce.
And then he went into the spiel about he had had a bad divorce and has caught his wife with some other guy or all that.
The ex-wife of Timothy John Smith testified that her husband stated that he would like to see what it would be like to watch somebody die. And he said that he wanted to have sex with a dead woman. She also talked about how he took martial arts, and he bragged that his hands were lethal weapons and that he could tear somebody's throat out.
Knowing what we knew, that Melissa was supposed to pick up her husband from Dickinson that night after she left the bar, we felt like that may have been a trigger when he found out that she was married.
Then there was the testimony of James Fuller, who he was a convicted felon. He shared a jail cell with Timothy Smith, and Timothy Smith started confiding in him and started bragging about how he beat up a woman and killed her with a tire iron and then raped her.
So what's it like? It's a rush, man. It makes you feel like a god or something, you know? All that power over life and death is in your hands. Nothing like it.
When the defense attorney argued to the jury that they should have mercy on Timothy John Smith, I felt very strongly that it was my job to bring the jury's attention back to the actual circumstances of this brutal murder. And the way I felt the most effective way to do that was to take the tire iron that was actually used to kill Melissa Cavender. It was introduced into evidence. I'd placed some phone books on the counsel table that was right in front of the jury, and I took the tire iron and I slammed it down on the table 6 times.
This is what he did to Melissa. Not once, not twice, but 6 times.
In describing to the jury that this is what Timothy John Smith did to Melissa Sue Cavender, and they need to show the same measure of mercy to Timothy John Smith that he showed Melissa.
My husband, he wanted him to get the death penalty. But I didn't want him to get the death penalty because I wanted him to suffer. I wanted him to remember the rest of his life what he did. In the courtroom, when I give my talk, when they let me talk, I had a family portrait and I held it up and I told Timothy Smith, I said, look at this. Of course, he wouldn't look. I said, when you close your eyes at night, this is the last thought I want in your mind is this picture.
You know, Timothy.
I said, Timothy, your dad can come to the jail, to prison.
And he gets to see you and talk to you and maybe hug and kiss you. But do you know what we have to do? We have to go to a cemetery and remember what Melissa's hugs and kisses felt like and what her voice sounded like. That's the difference in us.
After the punishment phase of the trial, they came back with the verdict sentencing him to life in the Texas Department of Criminal Justice. It was a relief that justice was served, and the reason that justice was served is because from the very beginning, the investigators in the case, they did their job.
I'm glad that we were able to give peace to her and her family. You know, we hate that it happened, but we did our best to make it right. So
I asked myself, did I do everything I could? And I hopefully, answer in the positive that I did everything I could to make sure that they had justice.
When you lose a child, your whole life changes. When it first happened, I used to dream about I'd be in his cell. And it sounds terrible for a mother to say this, but I was beating him with that tire too, telling him, now this is what it feels like. And then I'd wake up and I'd say, oh, it's a dream, And that went on for a while, and then I got to thinking one day, I said, I'm not hurting him. I'm only hurting myself. And I said, I'm not gonna let him run my life. I'm taking my life back, and I'm gonna show him and everyone else that we can go on. To come right out and to tell you, I have forgiven Timothy. I've never done that. I've never told anybody I have forgiven him. But I know in my heart I have, because she would have told me, Mother, you need to forgive. And that's what she would have done. I'll see you soon, sweetheart. I love you, baby.
The one thing we can learn from this is appearances can be deceiving. Who's going to think a person that is dressed as a rodeo clown is going to commit a murder?
If I could say anything to Timothy John Smith, it wouldn't be a statement. It would just be one question, and that would be, why?
I'd let him know, no matter how hard you tried, you didn't win.
Mr. Smith, you lose. You lose.
He's coming up for parole in about 5 years, and I'm praying he doesn't make it. And Lord willing, if I'm still alive, I don't care if they have to roll me up in a wheelchair, I'm gonna be there.